Okay, so I've hit my first obstacle, and that is that all the media that I actually put in ready for this live stream has just completely vanished. So that really, really sucks. So I'm just going to leave that screen up right now while I start talking about Gus. So I've steered clear of this case up until now. Um, Now, I should probably just check. I haven't checked my audio, so can I see a one in the chat if my audio is working fine? Um, and while you're doing that, I will have a quick hunt for some of the media that I'm missing. Gotta love StreamYard, right? Okay, so you're going to have to put up with a few pauses from me through this live stream as I search. Oh, great. Now it's telling me it won't let me put the file up. Okay, so I'll just keep talking for now while I try and get the file. Oh, good to see we've got someone from Melbourne here. Now, I will just say, when it comes to live streams, I just generally do a hello at the beginning. I'm not good with the stopping and commenting on things in the middle of the live stream and stuff. I still like to basically go with the same kind of format that I use with my other videos, which is basically trying to keep basically on track and not getting too bogged down in everything else. Okay, so I'm just seeing if this will upload, and hopefully. So, okay, I've got no media on this live stream, so I'm winging it. I will see if I can upload the video that I put together. Um, but at this point in time, seems like something has gone wrong, and StreamYard has just decided to completely mess up my first live stream. Okay, I'll pause that. So I've at least got the video. I haven't got any of the images that I put together. So South Australia, that's down the bottom of Australia, but where Yunta is, it's inland. So it's dry, it's hot a lot of the time, and it is your typical Australian outback. It's out the middle of nowhere. In Australia, we'd say out the back of whoop whoop, because it is. It's just so far from everywhere. And yeah, I am going to be completely winging it now for the rest of this live stream, because I had all these slides that I had put up in StreamYard ready to go. I had them all loaded in. And then as soon as I pressed go live, they all just vanished. I've got the videos, but everything else I've lost. Anyway, I will see while I'm playing the... probably that will just boot everything else out. I was going to say I'll see if I can pull them up while I'm playing the videos, but that will probably be a bad idea. So I've steered clear of this case up until now because in Australia there is a really, really long history of people wandering off in the outback and getting lost. It might look really open. It might look like it's really flat and like you couldn't possibly get lost. But basically, especially tourists seem to misjudge the terrain in the outback. And you do have areas where it gets a bit hilly. And once you've headed out a distance, you get yourself lost. You can turn around. Unless you're using a compass, you might think you've turned right around and you're heading back where you came from. But at the end of the day, it's too easy to get lost. We have various areas in Australia where I know tourists get annoyed with Australians when we do this. But, for example, if we have travellers who are going to go across the Nullarbor Plains or heading up into far north Queensland, they will get advice from pretty much every Australian that they talk to take an extra spare tyre, make sure they've got extra water in their vehicle. All this extra advice that we have to give them because we are programmed to understand how unforgiving Australia is if you get lost in the outback. And we've had so many instances where tourists have broken down somewhere out the back of Whoop Whoop, and instead of staying with their vehicle where they're going to get found, they go wandering off trying to get help. You're not going to find help out in the outback in Australia. So when this case first came out, we had South Australia Police saying, we don't believe this is suspicious. We think that Gus just wandered off. So there was a lot of people coming out from other countries going down the whole avenue of this is suspicious, this is another one of those cases. And I must admit, as soon as they found that single boot print, I did start to question things. But I didn't want to go down that route unless I had something more solid than that made me think that, yeah, this is suspicious. Of course, now we've had this media release earlier in the week where they've turned around and said, yeah, okay, we're now deeming this a criminal case. So what I've done, this video is not going to be so much of a deep dive. This is going to be me going through various media clips from day one and just sharing a bit more perspective on it and just discussing it. Now, I'm just playing a video in the background at the moment. This is from 60 Minutes, so I'm expecting that if I were to play the actual audio that went along with all this, that they would give me a copyright strike, because that's just what they're like. I'm possibly even taking a risk by playing this in the background, so I possibly should be pausing it occasionally. But it gives you some idea of the sort of terrain that we're talking about. It's dry, it's dusty, and you can get turned around and lost so easily. So going back, this was end of September that Gus went missing. Now, in Australia, we're heading into the warmer months. In the lower states, it's still kind of cold. You still get lower overnight temperatures. Somewhere like the outback, it is going to still get quite warm through the day. I was going to look up daytime temperatures for South Australia for that time of year. I didn't get around to that, and I will look at that in another video. But basically, we're talking about chilly nights, warm days, and dry days. It's a dry kind of heat. It's a different kind of heat when you're inland. I know for me, like Bendigo doesn't look like this. Bendigo is very green, but it's still very much inland, and it's a dry heat. The first spring that I was here seemed like I couldn't get my asthma under control because of how dry the heat was. And then you go somewhere like this, and you have this red dust that gets in your lungs. It gets in every orifice, and it is dry and unforgiving. So I could have seen the possibility of Gus ending up underneath one of those little sag bushes and people going straight past him when they were searching. It is a huge property. If you've not figured it out by now, our outback stations are massive. Outback stations can be bigger than some towns. They are isolated. To get to them, you're usually going along a dirt road on four-wheel drives. They're way out of the area. If you don't know where they are, you're probably not going to find them. So this just meant that, you've got this really desolate area where a kid could have gone missing. So they did a massive search, and I'm going to do another video where I go through the discussion of the search from the other day when they did their media release, because that definitely gives us a lot of information with regards to the case of Lily and Jack Sullivan and how things go in terms of searching for them. And it makes me even more confident that they are definitely not in the woods, because the technology that they've used here is the same technology that we've heard Rob McCammon talking about in terms of LiDAR and augmented reality and stuff like that. You just saw there where they actually put a drone down a mine, and they spoke about doing that in Jack and Lily's case. So this is similar in that there are mines and everything on this massive property, because obviously back in the 1800s, Australia was a massive gold country. Bendigo, where I live, was at one stage one of the richest towns or cities in the world because of all the gold mining. Ballarat, which is a few hours off the other way, I'm sitting here pointing, which isn't going to help you guys. Ballarat was another massive town, massive gold town. You may have heard of the Eureka Stockade, which was, a big rebellion in Australia back in the 1800s, and that was all to do with gold. Here in Bendigo, a lot of people have issues with their houses needing re-stumping. My house, if I put my wheelie office chair in the wrong spot on the floor, it just takes off on its own, because the floor in this house slopes down drastically at the back, and it's actually gotten worse since I moved in here. When my sister bought her house over in Flora Hill, they ended up having to re-stump it. No, Mike, this is alive. When my sister bought her house in Flora Hill, they had to re-stump it because Bendigo, and Ballarat is the same, is just riddled underneath with abandoned gold mines. So you get people whose backyards have caved in because there's abandoned gold mines underneath. And typical, gold era, people wouldn't say where the gold mines were, partly because they had to pay for a license, but also because they didn't want people stealing their gold. So properties like this outback property, is going to be riddled with mines, and they're not necessarily going to be mapped. So they've obviously they've identified the mines on the property, and they've put the drones down there. Okay, now I know I've got the clips in order. I just can't remember what's what. So I'm going to play the first clip. And this is from the early days when Gus was first reported missing. And that should give you some idea, I think, of, if you're not familiar with the case, that'll give you a bit more background information on the case. Okay, sorry, I've got
The little boy went missing from this homestead behind me. His name is August, known as Gus.
Let me know in terms of the clips if I've got them too loud, because at the moment, audio and that is something I've got to learn when it comes to StreamYard.
He was last seen at 5 o'clock Saturday night. The alarm was raised after it's believed he wandered off from the family's homestead, which is near Yunta, more than 300 k's from Adelaide. Police say he has long blonde curly hair and was last seen wearing a long sleeve shirt with a minion on the front and a grey sun hat. It's an incredibly remote part of the state. Yunta itself home to only 60 people.
Any parent.
I just want to point out, Yunta might only have a population of 60, but if you go on Google, it is your typical Australian town in that it has a local pub, because it seems like every town in Australia has a local pub.
Of kids. We just be feeling for this family at the moment, and we just wish them all the very best, and keep our fingers crossed that a good outcome happens.
Police have used drones and an infrared helicopter and SES volunteers to search the area, but today their efforts are being ramped up with police divers set to focus on nearby dams and creeks. Of course, there is extreme concern for his welfare, temperatures getting down to about 7 degrees overnight. Emergency crews will continue their search across this rugged landscape today. They are not giving up hope.
So that was about day 2.
Stated family of little Gus Lamont has shared its heartache as a
that was about day 2, that news report. But you can see how much they had. So many people there. They actually got the army in to help look. They got police cadets in there to help look, which is hilarious because they're all wearing their lovely shiny black uniforms, which would have been red by the end of the day. Crazy. How far is it from me? I think Adelaide is only about a 7-hour drive from here. But for me to get to Yunta, I think it would be about a 20-hour drive. It's further north. It's more in line with New South Wales. I wish I could show you the map, but I think I'm a bit worried now that I might crash the live stream if I try and find the map. I guess I can have a go while I'm talking. It's a bit further north than Bendigo, but it's also sort of further over. It's higher up. It's closer to New South Wales than Victoria. Okay, no, it doesn't like my pictures for some reason. It won't go up. But so it's a few days' drive if I were to go there. I had originally considered, offering to go there with a drone and do a bit of searching, but obviously that's not something I'm going to do now. I would consider, if we get to the point of a trial, maybe if I can convince my sister to babysit the pups for a week or a few days, I could consider going across there for a trial, because I've never actually been to South Australia. Now I've lost the train of thought where I was at. So that was the early days where they were basically saying, we think he's wandered off from the homestead. That was the information they were given. And if you're Australian, it just brings back a lot of William Tyrrell kind of memories. There's a little boy who also allegedly wandered off from his grandmother's house 10 years ago or more and has never been found. But it seems like all these cases, they always seem to just wander off with no sign. Anyway, I'm going to play the next clip, and then there's more to discuss when it comes to this next clip.
passes with no trace of the missing 4-year-old. With the search heading into a 5th day tomorrow, they're still clinging on to hope their beloved little boy will be found alive in the state's arid outback.
As time ticks, the efforts of police and volunteers become more frantic. Still no sign of little Gus Lamont in this unforgiving terrain after he disappeared from this homestead near Yunta without a trace.
Yeah.
So that actually would have been a creek bed that you saw there. They would rarely get water going through. Maybe once every couple of years you get a decent downpour and then you get water going through, but you can see how dry it is. They would have bores on the property where they're basically drilling down for water. But somewhere like those creek beds, so treacherous for a little boy. So that was another reason why I was steering clear, because there's so much there that certainly could make you think that the little boy was lost there somewhere. This guy's a neighbour, and he came out and made a statement for the family. And for me, as soon as a family has someone come out and make a statement on their behalf, as opposed to coming out and speaking to the media themselves, that's when the red flags start to go up. We saw that with Jaden Spicer, and we're seeing that with Malehya. And there are so many other cases where you get someone coming out on behalf of the family rather than someone speaking. Marilyn, he went missing on the 29th of September, I believe. So it's been a few months now. And obviously they've spent a lot of time on the investigation and reached a point now where they can turn around and say, yeah, we now believe it is criminal and we have a suspect in mind. Okay, I'm going to play a bit more of this.
Pretty hard time. Hard time for everybody. 4 days is hard for a 4-year-old.
The heartbroken family today breaking their silence with a statement read by a friend.
We're devastated by the disappearance of our beloved Gus on Saturday afternoon.
As they grip helplessly onto hope.
Gus's absence is felt in all of us and we miss him more than words can express.
Police today scoured previously.
Have you noticed every time people come out with these sort of statements, it's like they have a script that they have to stick to. There's never a lot of pleading for help or pleading for information or anything like that. Now, obviously, being out on a outback property, sure, you're not going to have people who are able to come forward with information because the belief was that he never went off the property. We're talking about several hundred acres of land here. But it just seems like the script is the same every time that a child goes missing, and then down the track we find out that actually it was suspicious. Now, probably you noticed the guy's voice. One of the downsides of living out in the outback like that is the dust. This is the guy who's clearly lived out there his whole life, and the dust has screwed up his lungs well and truly. When I used to live out in the country, I had a neighbour telling me how working dogs don't have such a long life expectancy compared to just domestic dogs who get to be inside because they get a lot of dust in their lungs from when they're out working stock. So it's a really unforgiving area.
Search dams, officers on horseback and on the ground, the chopper still in the air.
We're trying if we have everything we've got at it. We've got the helicopter, which is our best asset.
But nothing.
We used some dogs that might be able to assist in tracking some humans. Unfortunately, they didn't find anything.
Right now, the challenge for search crews is determining the direction that Gus went from this homestead. At the moment, there is no clue, no sign at all as to which way he may have wandered through this arid and vast landscape. The community and the family in this together.
Our hearts are aching and we are holding on to hope that he will be found and returned safely.
Supporting one another as the sun goes down on another day without Gus. Hannah Ford, 7 News.
And Hannah joins us now live from the scene. Hannah, the search continues as we head towards sunset.
That's right, Rosanna. Police have made it clear they're not giving up or scaling back efforts just yet, but a decision on exactly how many resources remain at the property will be made tomorrow. At this stage, the search to continue overnight and into tomorrow.
It's interesting that they are talking about day 6 for their decision in terms of when to decide what to do with the search. And with Lily and Jack, it was day 6 when they basically said, okay, we're scaling Mouse. We're not scaling Mouse. Sorry. He wants Mira. Hang on, I'm going to play more of the video.
Searchers pushing further and further out from where little Gus went missing. The hope is, of course, of finding a sign of where he went, a shoe, a hat, a footprint would allow police to at least narrow the search area. But of course, with every minute that goes by, police and the family grow more concerned. The temperature is set to drop to 7 degrees again tonight as a shattered family sits and continues to pray that Gus will be brought home to them.
Okay, it helps if you unmute the microphone when you try to speak. Sorry, things that I need to get better at doing. Sorry about the barking in your ears from Mouse. He just gets a bit excited sometimes and wants to play, and Amira just isn't interested right now. So they said, overnight temperatures of 7 degrees, which I guess is not super, super cold. But for a little child that size, with no body fat, no way of keeping warm or restoring heat, they're going to get hypothermia really, really, really quickly. So had he been out there, I suspect that he may not have even made it through the night, the first night. Daytime temperatures, I haven't looked it up, but I'm going to hazard a guess, and if there's any Australians in here that can give me a heads up, I'm going to hazard a guess that you're probably looking at daytime temperatures that time of year out in the outback, possibly still approaching 30 degrees. Because I know that here in Bendigo, normally at that time of year, we're still into the early to mid 20s already. So that's further north, it's further inland, so I think it's probably going to get even hotter through the day. Something that really stood out to me in this news interview, and it takes me back to Daniel Martel, listening to people's commentaries and listening to the news and adapting, because one of the things this reporter just said was they have no sign, not even any footprints. And then next day, someone finds this footprint 500 metres from the homestead. So I'm going to play that clip for you. Maybe it will get there.
A tiny footprint in the sand, the first sign of little Gus since he went missing on Saturday.
Yesterday we found a footprint which we've identified as a boot size similar to what Gus was wearing when he was last seen.
The lone print found about 500 metres north of the property near Yunta. It's an important clue in where to focus the search efforts of the 100 police, SES volunteers and community members working.
Let's acknowledge, you would have seen just how soft that ground was where that boot print was found. So certainly, I mean, for me, that was a red flag the moment I saw that, because you would have had more than one boot print. And they scoured the area and didn't find anything more. It's like those damn boot prints on the pipeline with Lily and Jack. It couldn't have been Lily and Jack, because to get there, there would have been other tracks before they even got there. And it just seems ridiculous to think that a single boot print would appear 500 metres from the house in this soft red clay because it's so dry that you've got this really soft layer that is just more like a sandy kind of texture and is going to show boot prints.
Tirelessly to find the 4-year-old, with 40 police cadets coming in to boost foot patrols in the hope of finding more evidence.
We're looking for things like a hat or a boot, or things like a 4-year-old would discard when he's getting hot and confused.
The footprint also led police to bring in a tracker with
That was something else that I wanted to comment on. And this is based on the same research that the searchers for Lily and Jack would have been basing their search on. And he is saying, look, we're looking for something that a 4-year-old might discard when they become hot or tired or confused. That would apply for Lily and Jack. They had that backpack with them. And had they, as one person suggests, continued along the pipeline and gotten beyond the search area, they would have got tired and dumped that backpack somewhere. So that is something that I think is very, very relevant when we also look at Lily and Jack's case. So I'm glad that they pointed that out here.
Knowledge of the area.
He's got a very good connection with the land here. He has worked in this property and he knows it quite well.
Major crime detectives also arrived on the scene, but authorities are still confident the 4-year-old wandered off into the bush.
There's no suggestion of anything suspicious, but they're just doing their due diligence.
Despite the discovery of the footprint, 5 days on from Gus's disappearance, police say the search effort has shifted to a recovery phase. They say they've spoken to his family to prepare them for every possible outcome.
Someone being without water, food and shelter. So we just prepared the family for the fact that we might not be able to find Gus alive.
The agonising wait for a heartbroken family as the frantic search continues.
So this was the point when they were starting to call it, scale things back and everything. Now, they also went on, you've seen some clips, but they went and drained some of the dams on the property, which is a huge task. Me being typical country person at heart was freaking out because I thought they were draining the dams and not putting the water back. But they were actually draining them into a water truck and then putting the water back. But I do find it disturbing that they reached this far in and all we heard from the family was from the neighbour reading out that statement. After this, there were a few more searches and things, but all we got was that boot print. Now, in terms of the tracker, I would imagine that he was an Aboriginal tracker because our Aboriginal trackers are some of the best trackers in the world. Probably the same with, I've heard that a lot of Canadian trackers are really good as well, like native Canadian trackers, similar kind of thing. I found it really odd seeing him on motorbike because in my brain, I think, traditional Aboriginal trackers. But obviously, when you're looking at a property that size, then, of course, you can be on a bike. He himself, I believe, made a comment in terms of the boot print that there should have been more if little Gus had gone out that way. So even the tracker basically said, look, there's something wrong with this. This just doesn't add up. Now, I'm not sure where I'm at with the videos. Hopefully, this is all making sense for everyone. Like I said, I'm kind of winging it here because I've lost a lot of my slides that I prepared. And for some reason, StreamYard isn't going to allow me to put them back up. So maybe next time around, I'll put them into a video because it seems to be happy for me to put videos up. Okay, so I'm going to keep playing the clips here for now because I think this is the best way of becoming familiar with Gus's story. And like I said, I will do some deep dives down the track. I am planning on doing another probably live stream where I look at the media conference in relation to Lily and Jack because the technology there that they've used tells us so much about the search for Lily and Jack. I think one of the great things about Australian police is that they're open. They're a bit like me. They just say it as it is. We're not very precious here in Australia. We just say it. We just blurt it out. So it's a very revealing press conference, that's for sure. Anyway, let's keep going with these videos for now because I think they give us the best idea of what went on.
It's a long, barren road out to the Murray's property.
I'm just going to say, I don't like this reporter. Her name is Jonica Bray, and I actually came across her back in May when I was covering Phoebe Bishop's case. Some of you may have followed that with me. This was a young 16-year-old in Queensland who went missing, and it turned out that her housemates were responsible for her death. This woman travelled up there for the Daily Mail. She did a lot of digging around, but the thing that she did that really put me off her was with Phoebe's funeral, the family requested no media. This woman filmed it, and then when one of the family members ran at their cameraman to ask them to leave because they were filming as the hearse was leaving, and she put this story out saying that they were chasing the hearse because they were so devastated, which is not what was going on. They were trying to get the media to go. So as soon as someone starts invading someone's privacy like that as a reporter, they lose my respect, especially when you turn up at a funeral and you've already been told we don't want media at this funeral.
But we're just about here. This is always hard to have these conversations with families in such tragic circumstances. But here we go. My name is Jonica Bray and I'm a senior reporter at the Daily Mail. I'm currently in Yunta, South Australia, where I have been covering the case of Gus Lamont, the missing 4-year-old. It's been over a month since Gus disappeared at his grandparents' remote property with no sign of the little boy. I've travelled deep into the South Australian outback to try to speak to the Murray family to hear their side of the story first.
I just want to say, I don't know about you guys, but I find it much easier to watch your Canadian reporters when they're actually standing there holding a microphone in front of them, because they look way less awkward than she does standing there not really knowing what to do with her hands. That's just me being a little bit pernickety, but it certainly is something that I've noticed in terms of the difference. I think this whole thing of with Canadian reporters actually standing there and holding the mics in front of them, it just looks a bit more natural, a little bit less awkward. Anyway, just random thought.
But what unfolded when I arrived, something I could never have expected.
Get out! Are you deaf?
Within minutes, I found myself staring down a shotgun. Here's what we know about that fateful day more than a month ago.
Now, I need to give a bit of perspective here. Yes, that was quite verbally aggressive, and it seems that that individual is one of two individuals who are possibly responsible for what happened to Gus. But there is an unspoken rule here in Australia. And I don't know if it's because she's British and she just doesn't understand this, or maybe based on her what she did with Phoebe's case, she just doesn't care. But the unspoken rule is that you do not enter someone's property in a rural area if there is a gate, if that gate is shut, if you can't see the house, and if there is a chain and lock there on the gate. Even if the chain and lock are currently unlocked, that shows you that that is a property that is private and you need to actually get permission to enter the property. There could be stock on the road. quite often on these properties, you might go over a cattle grid and then you might be in a paddock with a bunch of cows or sheep or something. You could have stock who, especially at that time of year, you could have stock who are calving or having lambs, and having some random stranger driving vehicles through there at a rate of knots can actually disturb the stock. There are so many reasons why it is just not done in Australia to enter a rural or an outback property if there is some distance from the gate to the house. Sure, if the gate is 50 metres from the house, then go for it. But you're usually going to park on the road, walk through the gate and walk to the house. You're not going to take your vehicle onto the property. The moment you take your vehicle onto their property, then you're basically invading their privacy.
When Gus went missing, Gus was playing on a pile of dirt outside the property that afternoon. Grandmother Shannon discovered Gus was gone when she went to call him inside for dinner at around 5:30 p.m. The family reported him missing 3 hours later. Shannon was inside the homestead looking after Gus's 1-year-old brother Ronnie when the little boy vanished. It has been reported that Gus's mum Jessica was with Josie looking for lost sheep around 10 k's from the homestead when Gus disappeared. The whereabouts of Gus's mother, Jessica Murray, and his 1-year-old brother, Ronnie, are currently unknown. Locals say that they haven't seen any sign of them since the tragic day that Gus went missing. 2 hours away from the Murray station, Gus's father, Joshua Lamont, has been living in and renovating a home in Malehya North.
I heard some information today that Jessica doesn't actually live full-time on that property. I think they are going through marital problems, and she was staying there with her 2 children at the time. But I would imagine that she possibly left the property because of the stress of what was going on with this case at that time.
Gus went missing, the house appears to be deserted, with talk of a deepening rift between him and the rest of the Murray family. It's understood Joshua only found out that his child was missing when the police woke him up in his Malehya North home hours after Gus had vanished. South Australia police say there are no suspicious circumstances surrounding Gus's disappearance and that they believe the boy had wandered off. Daily Mail does not suggest otherwise. Since then, the Murray family have remained largely silent, refusing to speak publicly and staying inside the same property that Gus.
So that, I believe, is the grandfather, possibly one of the suspects, or possibly the suspect in the case.
Last seen. I set out for Oak Park Station to ask the family if they were ready to break their silence. But what I encountered when I arrived at the property shocked me and turned this reporting trip into something far more dangerous than I ever anticipated. You're now about to see what happened when I came face to face with Josie Murray, Gus's transgender grandmother.
Who are you?
Pardon?
Who are you?
I'm with the media.
Out! You are trespassing. Get out!
I'm so sorry, I just...
Get out! Are you deaf?
Okay. I was leaving.
Get out!
I was leaving.
Shut your face and get out! We'll have the police on you because you've been warned not to come here. Get out!
I haven't been here
Get
before.
out!
I haven't been here before.
What are you, deaf? Get out!
Shocked and shaken.
She was deliberately escalating that. If you rock up to someone's property and they say, you shouldn't be here, you need to go, then even just a quick "I'm sorry, I'm leaving" is enough. But she kept having to pipe on in, even down to the, oh, it wasn't me who was told not to be there. She's a little bit too aggressive in this situation, and she escalated it. And yet now she's crying victim.
My photographer and I fled the property and made our way back to Yunta. The following day, I made a police report about what had unfolded at the property. The altercation happened just hours before the police announced that they would resume the search for little Gus for the third time. So I'm here on the road leading up to the Yunta property where Gus Lamont went missing just over 30 days ago. Behind me is the search, rescue and police who are arriving for the third search for Gus Lamont. The plan today is to dredge the dam, which is on the property. It's about 4.5 meters deep, and we actually don't know how long this is going to take, but we're going to follow the convoy now up to the homestead and cover this story as it unfolds. Just driving up to the Oak Park property.
I have to say, there's a lot of gall there to turn around and then go back to the property to film them emptying the dam when she's already had a confrontation with people on the property. Now, after that confrontation, because it was very widely publicised, the South Australia Police came out and said, well, actually, this individual had the gun with them because there was a snake that they were going to deal with. That's believable, but I strongly suspect that they were just not wanting to stir the situation up, because obviously at that point in time they must have already been looking at this as a criminal investigation, but they wouldn't have wanted to play their hand at it. They were probably wanting to continue with this idea of he wandered off. So they didn't want to exacerbate any sort of issues by laying charges or making this out as anything bigger than what it ended up as.
This is the homestead where Gus Lamont was last seen. So this is the third search that starts today for Gus Lamont. The previous two were called off after no trace of the little boy was found. The convoy of search and rescue, police have already headed up. We're just hanging back a little bit now as we go. It's probably another 45 minutes until we get up to the property. It's a really long, dusty, bumpy, rugged terrain out here. The dust from the convoy of the vehicles just fills the whole air. It's impossible to see. So we're just hanging up back a little bit now so that we can just drive up there safely. Obviously, there's a lot of tension in the air today. I can just only imagine how the family will be feeling right now. Whilst certainly don't want to find Gus in the dam, it's possibly the only closure that the family are going to have. So I don't feel like there's any good outcomes from today, but maybe it brings some peace to people, which I feel like this whole community needs, because the mystery of Gus's disappearance is one that the community are never going to recover from, and everybody needs answers.
I believe that the mother had left the property with the baby brother by this point in time. Sounds like the media was saying they didn't know where she went, so I'm guessing that she was elsewhere. I'll keep playing this bit for now.
In Friday's search, officers will once again focus their attention on the family's homestead. The property is so remote, it is at the far end of a 40k lonely, deserted road. It is quite literally in the middle of nowhere. This is a story of a missing child and a family on edge. We're going to be here for the rest of the weekend and as long as the search is in place, and we will be keeping you updated.
So that was going back a few months, and then I'm pretty certain that the next clip I have is the discussion of the latest bit of news. I should have made notes, and this is something I'm learning. I will make notes in terms of what I put on these videos. It was just easier to put it all onto one video rather than try and worry about YouTube and stuff like that. But your guess is as good as mine as to what clip is coming up next.
Well, more now on the twist in the disappearance of 4-year-old Gus Lamont. South Australian police have declared the case a major crime and have revealed a family member is now a suspect. We are joined by former South Australian police officer and criminologist Rachel Lever from Adelaide. Rachel, thanks for your time this morning. This is a major development by police. What's led them to change their focus from misadventure to major crime?
Morning. Thank you for having me. So the transition from a missing person or a misadventure to a major crime usually occurs when police have believed that something more serious has occurred and through the receipt of new information. So as we heard yesterday from the SA Police briefing, is that police have thoroughly investigated the property that Gus went missing from. And they came up with those three possibilities. So did Gus just wander off? Was someone unknown to Gus that has maybe been involved in that disappearance? Or has someone that's known to Gus been involved in that disappearance? And they've ruled out or eliminated those first two possibilities where they now have a suspect. So that's really how they have changed the tact from that misadventure to a major crime.
Obviously, with any investigation, police have to keep an open mind in the early days, right? And they say that the family member who's a suspect is not Gus's parents. But would this person, who they do suspect now, have been on their radar from the beginning?
Look, they absolutely could have. So often what you see in the media is small parts of the police investigation.
I mean, let's be real. I reckon they were investigating it as a criminal case from pretty much the second or third day in. You don't get a point where you're saying, look, we've got all this evidence now and we believe this is criminal. That doesn't happen overnight. We've seen how much time and work has already gone into Lily and Jack's case. And that was May, this is September, but they're not yet naming it up as criminal. They're not saying we've got suspects. So this isn't something that happened overnight. I think they probably sussed things out pretty quickly.
Looks as though police are only doing that search, but on the side, there are police detectives and other frontline response workers that are doing the investigation into other areas of interest. So, it's absolutely a high possibility that they had that on their radar.
We know this has been such an extensive search and really difficult terrain out there. They've had a car seized, a motorbike seized as well. What kind of forensic evidence would they now be looking for?
Yeah, so, those types of items.
Now, depending on the age of the vehicle, because some of these outback properties will have really old vehicles, but if it is a newer vehicle, then they're going to do vehicle forensics on that vehicle, which there's a video in my playlist where I spoke about Malehya's vehicle and the sort of things that they can do with vehicle forensics in terms of GPS and all sorts of stuff. So if you want to watch that, I will, after this live, I will add a link for that so that people can go and watch that. It is actually really fascinating when you discover just how much forensics they can do in terms of the computers and everything in modern vehicles.
Normally seized whenever it's suspected that they've been used in a commission of an offence. And if you think quite logically, that the property that Gus has gone missing from is huge, right? So the consideration of maybe Gus being moved around the property or off the property, there would have the high probability that a vehicle or some sort of transport would have had to have been used to do that. In terms of forensics, really at this point it could be anything from DNA, fibres, and even tracking movements through the GPA navigation and the likes.
It's just terrible, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about a 4-year-old boy here. I think everyone was just hopeful.
She's commented there in terms of they're going to try and find out if he's on the property or off the property. Given that usually in these situations, the victim is found within a 5-kilometre radius, and we have a massive, massive outback property here, I'm going to say that I think they are probably 100% certain that Zach was never removed from the property, because the size of that property, he could be anywhere. It could be a real struggle for them to find him because you've got those mine shafts, you've got such a vast area to cover. She was talking about forensics and stuff and, looking at fibres and stuff. The other thing too is if they look at samples of dirt from like mud guards and stuff like that, that may identify different areas on the property, especially if it's like around the creek bank or something like that, because you're going to have the different kinds of minerals in the soil and stuff like that.
Wandered off, but
Absolutely.
It seems that's definitely not the case now. It's just tragic.
It is absolutely tragic. So sad.
All right, Rachel. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today and your insight.
Police have revealed a family member is now under investigation for their potential involvement in the disappearance of 4-year-old South Australian boy Gus Lamont. Live to Samantha Hogan in Yunta. Sam, what more do we know?
Well, police have revealed that a family member who lived with Gus at the remote station is now a suspect, and that person is no longer cooperating with police and has hired a lawyer. They've now seized a number of items from the property where Gus lived with his 2 grandparents and his mother, but police stress that his mum and dad are not suspects in this case. However, they do still have questions about exactly when Gus disappeared. Take a listen.
We've identified a number of inconsistencies and discrepancies with that information as it relates to timelines and the versions of events provided to us by the family members.
These revelations come
in terms of the timeline, because it is this outback property, there's a chance that he hadn't been seen for quite some time before he was reported missing. Although I think that perhaps, given that they're saying that the parents aren't suspects, I think that they can probably get a fairly decent timeline in terms of days as to when Gus was last seen. But that certainly suggests that his mother, Jessica, wasn't there at the time that he went missing. So maybe she went somewhere and the grandparent was looking after the 2 children.
4 months into what has been South Australia's biggest ever missing persons investigations, and it's not ending anytime soon. Police say they cannot rule out returning to the property here.
I have to say, I don't think it is Australia's biggest ever missing persons investigation. I think that is the media getting away with themselves a little bit. There was the disappearance from the Adelaide Oval back in 1973 with 2 young girls, and I can't think of the names right now. Ratcliffe is coming to mind, but I can't think of their names. I think that, that is still, that's a cold case now. That's not been solved. That's over 50 years on. So to claim that this is the biggest investigation, I don't think so.
The grandparents of missing 4-year-old Gus Lamont have retained lawyers amid a shocking new development in the case. Alan Murrell joins us from Adelaide. Alan, what's the latest?
Well, Jen, those grandparents, Josie Murray and Shannon Murray, have both retained independent legal counsel as the disappearance turned abruptly from a missing persons case into a criminal investigation. Police have declared it a major crime, fearing Gus could have been killed accidentally or deliberately and that someone known to him was involved. The 4-year-old vanished in September while playing alone on the family's Oak Park station in South Australia's outback. Publicly, police at the time said they were treating it as a case of the young boy wandering off, but they also were exploring other theories, including potential abduction. There were 8 searches of the huge property about 40 kilometres north of Yunta, involving hundreds of personnel. They checked a 5.5-kilometre radius from the homestead. They drained dams, they checked abandoned mine shafts, but detectives became increasingly concerned about discrepancies in the timelines. Last month, they executed a search warrant seizing a vehicle, a motorcycle and electronic devices and identified a suspect. Now, those 2 lawyers for the grandparents have just released a statement. They say they are devastated by yesterday's comments from South Australia Police, that they have cooperated fully and want nothing more than to find Gus and reunite him with his mum and dad. Police say neither Gus's mother, Jessica, nor Joshua Lamont, his father, are suspects, and they too have been shocked by the developments. Jen?
I have to say that last statement coming from them, they are devastated and want Gus to be found. I don't know how many of you followed the Gabby Petito case, but that gave me Laundry Family vibes. It was so much like the statement that was made on behalf of them by their lawyer when Gabby was missing, and they're saying, we had nothing to do with it and we hope that she can be found soon and brought home to her family. And then, of course, we find out later that Brian was responsible for Gabby's death. And then even later on, we find out that it seems almost certain that the Laundry family knew. It sounds like Roberta Laundry definitely knew. So this, coming from these people, having their lawyer say this, I don't buy it, especially not because South Australia Police are not going to come out and say we have a suspect and it's someone from the property if there's a chance of them being wrong, because can you imagine the lawsuit that would occur? There was a stabbing or a major incident in a Bondi shopping centre a few years ago. A guy with a knife went rampant and stabbed multiple people. And the media made a huge mistake and they named the wrong person, and that person sued the media. You're not going to come out and say that you believe that one of the people living on that property is a suspect unless you have a mountain of evidence. Obviously, they've not named which grandparent it is, but it seems pretty clear that we are looking at one of the grandparents in terms of being a suspect. They outlined their investigation in their media conference, and when I cover that, it's just mind-blowing, because you will see they've not made any mistakes here. There's no way someone could have come onto that property and abducted Gus. And from what we see in terms of what they did with the search, there's no way that the search missed him. And from that, it also shows me there's no way the search missed Jack and Lou, because the technologies that they describe for this search are what Rob McCammon has been referring to in terms of Lily and Jack. They've given us some really good images here that show how augmented reality works, which is something that I mentioned some time back in a video, which is connected with your helicopter footage and stuff like that, and even with drones these days. But like I said, I will cover that separately from this, because I wanted this video just to be covering the case, just an introduction to the case, because I've not covered it. Like I said, I steered clear at first because I was reluctant to go down that road knowing how easy it is for people to get lost in the outback. And I was just waiting. I knew that Australian police are pretty quick to come out and name things up when it's suspicious. So I just figured I would wait. And it seems like they have now come out and said it is suspicious. But can we just acknowledge how many cases now have there been where we hear about this random boot print or footprint? We've got Summer Wells, we've got Lily and Jack, and now we've got little Gus. It's like there is some little handbook on how to botch up, covering up when you've done something with a little child. Now, I'm actually going to finish the live stream here. These are the main clips that I wanted to share with you, and Mouse is kind of losing the plot because he wants me to take him outside. So I guess that means that this is probably a good spot to finish. And also I have a doozy of a video to work on for Lily and Jack today. I'm going off at a tangent, and I have some audio from Belinda that she gave me this morning that will help me with this video that I'm working on. So I'm going to jump in and start working on that video, which will be, it'll be out later today in Australia, or if you're in Canada and America, then obviously it'll be there tomorrow morning when you get up. Yeah, Mouse rules. Mouse runs the household here. My existence is here for Mouse. So when he says he wants to go outside, he's given me about 15 minutes grace. Things are going to start getting crazy in a minute if I don't move and take him outside. Now, before I jump off, I do want to ask people to hit that like button on this video, because obviously this case hasn't had a lot of coverage. This case doesn't get a lot of views, so I want little Gus's story to get out there and be seen, so you can help me with that by hitting the like button. If you're watching this on replay, please leave a comment in the comments section, because that also helps get this out there. Thank you so much to everyone who's come in for this live stream. I have to say I was a little bit nervous because this is the first time I've tried to do it juggling media, and as you saw at the beginning, that kind of went flat. But I've learned from that, and I think I will just put it all together as one long video where I just put the images within the video, so I can just pause it as I go along. Just makes it easier for me. So, yeah, Mouse wouldn't even hit 4.5 pounds. I'm trying to convert that in my head in terms of kilograms, but he is a serious lightweight in terms of chihuahuas. Even like in terms of chihuahuas, he is small, but he runs the house here. Even Taka, my Kelpie Lab cross, who's like 30 kilo, has to basically do things his way. So it seems like we're going to go and take Mouse outside now. So thank you so much for turning up. Thank you for the people who gave me super thanks, or super chat, I think you call it. So appreciative. Certainly helped me put some money back in the coffers after purchasing this MacBook. Keep an eye out. I'm going to try and do at least 2 or 3 live streams a week. I still want to stick with my video formats as well, but I do want to get some more live streams happening where it gives me a chance to start covering other cases, and it just makes life a bit easier having this MacBook, I have to say. Anyway, on that note, thank you so much, and I'm going to go take this dog outside before things get really crazy. So I'll catch you again soon.